Welcome back. You're watching NHL Tonight. The Calgary Flames have signed veteran defenseman Tyson Barrie to a PTO. Barrie spent last season in Nashville. He scored 1 goal, had 14 assists. That was the final year of a 3-year deal that he signed in Edmonton, but was eventually part of that deadline deal that brought Mattias Ekholm to the Oilers. Johnny, he's 33 years old. At this stage of his career, what does Tyson Barrie bring to an NHL club?
Well, Tyson Barrie knows who he is, and the entire league knows who Tyson Barrie is, and that is an offensive-minded, point-producing, power play quarterbacking defenseman. That's what he's been his entire career, and he still can do it. I'm going to say last year in Nashville, that was an aberration. It was a down year for him for sure. It wasn't the right fit perhaps in the system and the coach. Roman Josi obviously eats up every single offensive opportunity, as he should in Nashville. Just didn't work. But everywhere else in his career, he's been relatively productive. Now, you have to know what you're getting. You're not going to have him out there killing penalties late in the game or whatever it might be. But if you want a guy who can skate with the puck, pass it up the ice, advance it to your forwards, produce points, run a power play, that's what Tyson Barrie can do. And choosing Calgary, and this is the entire PTO match game, is choosing the right team. And why is Calgary good for Tyson Barrie? Is because with some of the defensemen they lost, they're thin on defense. He'll be competing with young players, unproven players, trying to beat out those guys. His biggest hurdle might be the 2 best defensemen in Calgary, Mackenzie Weegar, Rasmus Andersson, they both shoot right. Tyson Barrie also shoots right. Like, that will be probably one challenge for him. But as far as experience and what he can do there's probably a spot, if he has a good camp, to beat out one of those young guys and earn a spot back in the NHL.
All right, he's not the only familiar name. Still looking for maybe a new team and a new contract out there. How about Max Pacioretty? According to reports, both the Leafs and the Red Wings have interest in Pacioretty's services. Pacioretty playing 47 games last year with the Capitals, kind of besieged by injuries the last couple of years. Pacioretty, if you're looking at these 2 teams, which one's the better fit for you?
It's so fascinating for me because, well, I think probably Toronto. Because Max Pacioretty wants to play in a good team where they have the puck and play offense. And if he's healthy enough to skate well, he'll probably be able to, score goals again. And Toronto is more prepared to do that than Detroit. So I think the Leafs, they could sign him to $1 million contract. And if it didn't work out, you could put him in the minors or whatever it might be, and they would be willing to eat that $1 million because it would not count against their cap. They have that financial flexibility in Toronto. And I could see him saying, okay, who am I going to compete with? Bobby McMahon, a guy who scored 15 goals last year, but mildly unproven. Nick Robertson, who wants a trade. Like, these are the guys that I'm battling for a top 6 spot to play with John Tavares and Willie Nylander. That would be an amazing landing spot. So that's why Toronto makes sense. Why I love Detroit if you're Steve Yzerman. Guess who's not signed? Lucas Raymond. Right? And so, like, maybe an insurance policy or maybe a little bit of a nudge in the negotiations to say, hey, we have a guy that will play in your space, not as good as you, but, he's an offensive player, has had a really good career when healthy. I think so much of that depends on the Raymond negotiation and how that plays out. And, of course, Max Pacioretty's health. He's just, fought being healthy for so long now. You're not sure how good he can be when he gets back to it. The games he played last year was still just working through the rust of a couple of years of injuries. So if he can get back somewhere close to what he was before, he can help those teams. But I think Toronto, if they're willing to offer him a contract, even if he knows that if he doesn't make the team, he'll get sent to the minors. That would be part of the deal. It's an interesting one, though. Go to Detroit, where you might get bumped out by a guy re-signing, or Toronto, where you have to beat out a couple guys who have contracts, but there are not proven goal scorers yet.
Toronto, Detroit, we'll have to see where Max Pacioretty ends up, or maybe somewhere else. We talked about his injuries. Speaking of injuries, we had the news yesterday. Torey Krug, unfortunately, can't avoid surgery on that ankle. He was trying to rehab it. He will undergo ankle surgery, expected to miss the entire upcoming season. An emotional Torey Krug discussing the future of his career earlier today.
Over the last few years, it's starting to get worse and worse, and I've been able to manage it for so long now, and last year was definitely tough, trying to manage the pain level, and then this summer wasn't really able to do any of the things that I need to do in order to prepare for the NHL season, and tried to work through it and find a way to train so that I could prepare for the season, and we're here now because I couldn't, and I'm going to have to go in there and get it fixed. So I'm going to feel better as a person, and I'm going to be able to carry my kids up and down the stairs, which, I haven't been, I'm able to do it some days, but, waking up, it's tough. So it's a big part of, the people that are around you. And like I said, the Blues have been amazing. My teammates have been great, so I'll be around for sure.
you know, that's what I've known and loved for so long. So.
Oh man, you can hear it in his voice there, just talking about the game he loves and the fact that he's, injury preventing him from playing the game that he loves right now. You can see his numbers in 4 seasons since leaving the Bruins and going to St. Louis, 255 games, 146 points. When this guy is healthy and he's on the ice, he's really effective on the back end.
Still very productive, even in sort of injury plagues. He's talking about dealing with his ankle for years.
Yeah.
And it's so tough when players don't get to make decisions on their own terms.
Yes.
The injuries are forcing them to make a decision. And you talk about it in twofold. One, can I prepare properly for a season? Beyond dealing with the pain, can I prepare properly? He said no, he could not. So you're going to put yourself in a position where you're not going to be very good anyways because you can't train properly. But maybe more importantly, Jameson, and this is, I had the same conversation when I played for St. Louis, is managing your life. He talked about wanting to carry his kids up the stairs.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, managing pain, which can be a dangerous game, trying to do it for months and months at a time. And more importantly, thinking about the other 60 years that he still has to live and be healthy and vibrant and do all the things that he wants to be able to do. And having this surgery gives him the best option to do that and also maybe resume his NHL playing career. But I think it's almost the priority. You make that very difficult call. I'm picking kind of health long-term in my life over my hockey career.
Yeah.
And you're putting at risk, maybe you may never play again.
Right.
And that is unsettling and saddening, and you saw him have a very visceral reaction to the prospect of that. I can completely relate, and it's a hard journey to go through, but hopefully the surgery relieves the pain and gets him back to living normally, and then he can focus on maybe trying to play again.
You said you can relate. Take us inside. Like, what are those?
I played in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I had a torn labrum. It was the 3rd time I had it. I got an MRI done. They say you have degenerative arthritic changes. Sounds pretty familiar to his ankle.
Yes.
And the conversation was like, I'd like to be able to lift my kids.
Yep.
I'd like to be able to throw a baseball, play tennis, play golf, whatever, like live a normal life.
Yeah.
And so can I keep playing with it? Yeah, it hurts every day, and I'm not playing very well, but I probably could. But how much damage am I doing that may last a lifetime? And I made the decision to have surgery. I never played in the NHL again.
Wow.
And that was it. And so...
and up until that point in your career, you're probably just programmed, whatever it takes, get back on the ice.
I already
play through it.
I played through it for a year and a half previously. So you do what you can do to play, and sometimes you make bad medical decisions to do so.
Yeah.
But at some point, you get to that point, maybe a little older, with a family, with some perspective, and you make a tough decision.
Yeah, big picture. Rooting for the best for Torey Krug and his future and obviously his overall health. Unfortunately, not the only scenario in the NHL where a guy is potentially missing the entire upcoming season. Jesper also expected to miss the entire season after undergoing neck surgery in early August. Foss suffered a neck injury in the Hurricanes' regular season finale against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Didn't play again in the playoffs. How big of a loss is this for Carolina at this stage of the offseason?
He's a good player, versatile, useful. He's such a typical Carolina Hurricane. Like, he's quick, buzzes around, he's just super responsible, scores big goals, can kill penalties. Yeah, I mean, they have him down there on that contract for a reason. And again, it happened in like the last game of the season last year, a nothing game for Carolina. And then he misses all the playoffs, not able to get better, has to have the surgery later in the summer. And I think, again, this is sort of news breaking, but not news to Carolina and not news to Jesper Foss. I think everyone knew that as the summer wore on, he was going to have this surgery. And anytime you say he's having neck surgery, you take all the time you need. If it's a year, whatever, if you can come back and play, that's great. But Carolina was prepared for this eventuality. Jesper Foss will have to go through a pretty difficult rehab to get back and get healthy. But, you're not going to push that injury ever.
Right. All right, we are just a couple of weeks away from training camps opening up across the National Hockey League. And the Washington Capitals still unsure about the future of TJ Oshie. Oshie has dealt with back issues the last 2 seasons, which has caused them to miss some long stretches of the season. Oshie said back in April that he's okay stepping away from the game if he can't find a solution to fix and alleviate the back issues that he's been dealing with the last couple of years. Where do you think this goes? The fact that we're 2 weeks away from camp and we don't have a definitive answer.
And we could very well see TJ Oshie have the exact same interview we just saw Torey Krug deliver. Because TJ Oshie, I was reading about it, and we know how hard he plays, what a great career he's had, how an inspirational kind of teammate he is. But he talks about there's days where he can't get up. He's going to lie on the floor all the time because he's in so much pain. there's no way to live, let alone how are you going to play in the NHL when you're at that point? So he's tried to train, try to manage it, and sometimes he can move around and sometimes he can't. It's going to be very difficult. I think the test will come when training camp opens. You have to go and pass a physical. Now, it's somewhat perfunctory. Like, it takes a lot to fail a physical. Like, most guys can get through it. But if you can't move, you can't bend, you have a hard time getting up, you have no range of motion, you can't protect yourself, let alone play well, maybe that decision gets taken out of his hands. And if he fails a physical, then he's not playing anyways. And, you know, he's invested a lot into his career. He's given a lot, his body, of his body to his career. So I could see, you know, unfortunately for Washington and TJ Oshie, again, maybe not on his own terms. He's talked about coming to grips with that. And when you have a career that he's had, maybe it's a little easier because he's had so much success. But it would not surprise me at all if he gets there, fails the physical, can't play this year, and then, you know, who knows what the future goes from there.
Speaking of the future, it feels like Washington's almost preparing for the future.
Yeah, they talked about it. Like, yeah, you know, they have a whole bunch of new players coming in. Yeah. And they talked about younger players maybe having an opportunity if TJ Oshie's not available. They want him there, obviously. But Washington, with or without Oshie, is a very different-looking team, and I think so much better. Now, Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be a massive part of that conversation. We know how excellent he can be and how frustrating he can be sometimes for the teams that he plays for because you know the potential is there. But, you know, Chychrun and Roy are going to be the big difference makers. Mangiapane can get back to being goal scorer. They're going to be an entirely different, deeper, more experienced, better team. Because if they didn't bring these guys in, they would have been sunk. You can't have 10 first and second year players and expect to be remotely competitive. It's just not going to happen. So they had to bring in some experience. They did. I think they'll be much better this year.